Hi everyone, I'm Chad. Welcome to Maker's Bench. Thought I'd give it a shot from out here in the patio today. Nice day out. Finally starting to get some warm weather here in Iowa. So, I did a video about 2 weeks ago or so on CAD tutorials, maybe it was a week ago, CAD tutorials, parameters, and I wanted to do a supplemental video, so to speak, just to give a little more detail about the parameters box and the functioning of how parameters work, how to enter them, how you can enter them, where you can enter them, and what happens when you make a change to a parameter in one area or the other. So let's give that a shot. We're going to hopefully make this a quick video, and yeah, I think that should be it. Let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back up to our parameters box. I'd like to go into the parameters box, and I like to start out throwing some parameters in. I don't always get them all right the first time, and so we're going to put in a length here. I'm in inches right now. I'm just going to say that's 6. I'm going to make another parameter, and I'm going to call that width. We'll make it 4. We'll make a rectangle. And so I'm going to make a rectangle. I'm going to start a sketch here, and we're going to do a rectangle. So there's that. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go to D for dimension, and I'm going to put length. So length is 6. You can see right here, it showed up as 6. And then we're going to put in our width. And our width is 4. Alright. So I'm going to stop sketch. We've got our rectangle. And then I'm going to hit E for extrude. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to start pulling up on there. And I'm going to make, and now I don't have a parameter for height, but I'm going to make this, I don't know, 5. So we've got our rectangle there. So that's what I want to show first, is that, so I forgot to make a parameter. I didn't have to go back in and make it right then and there. I just put in a number. And I'm going to go back into parameters now. And I'm going to make a new parameter. I'm going to call it height. And I'm going to make it 4.5. And what I can do from here is if we look at the tabs, basically these blocks or headers or menus or whatever you want to call it, these drop down arrows, we've been working in user parameters. There's another one called model parameters, and there's some here called unsaved because we haven't actually saved the file yet. But if I hit the drop down there, you can see that there's a sketch and that there's an extrude, and so it keeps track of all of the things that you've done in here. And so sketch 1 is going to be where I put in the length and the width, right? So there's my length and there's my width, and there are the values 6 and 4. And then the extrude is going to have it's got the tapered. I can drag this guy over a little bit so we can see all this stuff a little bit better. But you can see that there's a long distance and there's a taper angle, and that long distance is the one that we made the height, and we made it 5. We just gave it a number, and we didn't put in a taper angle. But if I come in here to the expression and I highlight that, I can now type in height, and I hit enter, and I hit enter again, and you can see my box drop down there a little bit, and the value changed to 4.5. So just from there, I was able to go in and edit that extrude dimension while I was making the parameter. So I think that's really a nice thing to do. If I even go over here to down in the timeline, if I right click on the extrude and I hit edit feature, oh, I can't edit the feature. Let's double click on it. Double click on it, there it goes. We edit the feature, you're going to see that the distance changed to height. I didn't have to go back in there and do anything. I just changed it to height, and it updated the, when you open up the extrude dialog box, it updated that dimension there. So it's really versatile. You can really jump around, and if you forget to put it in one place, you just put it in the other, switch that dimension around, and you get that. I'm going to add another sketch, and we're going to click on this face. I'm going to just draw a triangle. I'm going to draw a triangle, and I'm going to use a couple constraints here. Move my constraint up. I'm going to make all of these equal so that it's an equilateral triangle. Right? There, they're all equal. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give this a dimension of 3. And I'm going to see if I can use a midpoint constraint. the midpoint of this line and the midpoint of this line. Sure enough, that worked. And I think we're locked in now. I can't move it anywhere. So I'm going to stop that sketch and extrude this guy. Distance. We're going to drag it back. That'll cut. Distance is going to be all. We are cutting. We hit OK. And there is the V-cut that we just put into that block. Now I want to go back and I want to change this to being something else. I want it to be more parametric. I want it to move with the model. We're going to say that I want the length of this arm to always be a quarter of the height. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a new parameter and I'm going to call this notch width. Alright, and I'm going to say that I want it to be height times 0.25. So we can use algebra in here. I think I mentioned that in the last video, but we can use formulas and we can use algebra and stuff to create parameters. So I hit OK, and it's going to show that that value is 1.125. So I can go down here to extrude 2, and I can look at my expression. That's a taper angle. Oh, it's in the sketch. So it's 3, that linear dimension was 3, and now I'm just going to put in here notch width. And you're going to see that this thing's going to get smaller. It just did. Hit OK, and there our notch width is a quarter of the height. And we can inspect that. We can measure this point to this point, and it says here that it is 2.438. I don't know if that's even right or wrong. I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong spot. It's actually, distance is 1.125. I was looking in the position X and position Y. I'm still getting used to different software. I'm mostly an Inventor guy, so getting used to using Fusion is a little bit different for me. And I believe the height was 4.5, so a quarter of that, seems like that's about right. That is about right. It is right. So, so that's a couple things. What else can we do? Okay, another thing we can do is we can use other types of measurements. They don't have to just be length measurements for parameters. So I'm going to do another notch on the bottom or the side of. We'll do it on the side of the block here. We'll put another triangle. This time it's not going to be an equilateral triangle. We're going to do, let's see how we're going to do this. We're going to put a dimension from here to here. We're going to make that 50 degrees. And what I'm going to do now is I will make the two sides equal so that will always be in the center there. And I'm going to do that midpoint constraint again. Here to here. And we'll also have a, you know what, I'm going to do this. I want that line, there we go. And we're going to make that notch width again. We'll make it the same width, but the notch might be longer or shorter depending on the angle we make it. So I'm going to hit stop sketch. We're going to extrude that, pull it back, and make it all. Instead of entering a distance, I can make it all. And if I make it all, it cuts through the entire solid object. As you can see, if I come in here and if I change the width, let's move this over. If I change the width to 6, that extrusion will follow it. And that type of a thing. So that works out really well. I'm going to go back to parameters now, and we're going to make another parameter called notch angle. And in this one, we're going to go down and we're going to hit the little arrow by length. We're going to come to angle. We're going to grab degrees, and I'm going to enter 40. We'll make it 40, and I'll hit OK. And now we can come down here to our latest sketch, sketch 3. I made that 50 degrees. Well, now I'm going to make it notch angle. And there, it changed. Alright, so now we can go back to our parameters. I can go here to notch angle, and I can make it 35. I can make it 60. I can make it 80. So you can see that you can move that around just by doing that. So you can use degrees, you can use, let's go take a look. If I make a new one, we can see that we've got no units, which is if you want to use a quantity. We did that in our radial pattern, our circular pattern in that fidget tutorial. We made a quantity of how many arms we wanted on there. Length, you've got your millimeters, centimeters, meters, microns, inches, foot, feet, yard, mile. So I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do there. Angle, radians, degrees, all that stuff. Currency, you can even do dollars. I don't know why. Current, that's what, amps. Luminosity, as you can tell, I don't know what a lot of these are. Grams, kilograms, pounds, math, ounce, math, whatever, all that math stuff. Percentage, substance, temperature, time, solid angle, speed. So there's a lot of magnetic field, magnetic flux, viscosity, frequency. There's a ton of stuff in here, and I know I just scratched the very surface of this stuff. When I use anything, it's millimeters or it's inches. And you know, we can, let's make a hole. We'll call it hole diameter, and we'll call this 8 millimeters. So I'm going to put in a hole. You know, can we create a hole this way? In Inventor, there's a hole tool. That's what I'm looking. Oh, there it is, a hole tool. There it is. Hole. Remove this away. Reference. I'm going to select that. I'm going to call it hole diameter. I'll say hole diameter, and I'm going to say times 2. And then I'm going to grab another reference, and I'm going to say the same thing. Whoops. And I put a hole there. I didn't actually finish the hole, did I? Let's see. Let's go back to the hole. Down the timeline. I double click on it. I edit it. Depth, diameter, hole diameter. It's going to make it a lot different. And then I can also do a counterbore, countersink, all that extents. I can also do another all, and I'll hit OK. So now we have an 8 millimeter hole. And if I change the hole diameter to, you know, 20, it's going to move the hole, and so that it's always equal distance from the corners at 2 times the hole diameter. So it's from the center of the hole to the edge is 2 times the hole diameter. So now here's something else that's really kind of handy little tool to use is with your parameters, you can hit a star here and you can make them favorites. And you can see as soon as I did that, the favorites goes up in there as a parameter. So length, width, and height could be favorites, right? And then when this stuff is collapsed, your length, width, and height could be here. When you get some really complex parts, you can get some lists of parameters that are just huge. And when those parts lists or those parameters lists get really huge, sometimes it's really hard to you know, find all of the ones that you use to really drive the part. So using the favorites is a really nice thing. Another thing to do is, you know, notch angle. You can put comments in here, like angle of the notch. And that way when you're putting some of these in and you name them, sometimes it can get a little confusing as to what they are, or what they were really meant for, or what they do. So putting a comment in there to remind yourself of what they're for, or if somebody else is ever going to use the model, they might want to know what that's for. So putting a comment in there is really a nice thing to do sometimes. It's a handy feature. I use it when I get really big long lists of parameters. Okay, well, I hope you found that tutorial to be informative and helpful, and I hope it gives you a little better understanding of how you can use the parameters to in your models. So if you liked the video or you have any comments, please leave them down in the comments section. Subscribe if you haven't, and hopefully we'll see you again next time.